Ink Bowers Game Corner.
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. And today I'm very excited to check out V-Wars from IDW. This is for 3 to 5 players. Take about 60 minutes to play, and it's for ages 14 plus. And this is a game based on the popular comic book V-Wars, in which vampires are trying to take over the Earth. It's a little bit Pandemic. It's a little bit Battlestar Galactica. It's a whole lot of shuffling cards and other various things. But is it good? Let's open it up, and I'll tell you. Alright then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of V-Wars. First and foremost, we got our handy-dandy rule booklet. It is, let's see, it's about 12 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. And in theory, it should have you up and running in no time at all. But this is actually a god-awful, porous rule booklet. It's weirdly organized. It's not very helpful. There's a giant play example, which looks like it should be helpful, but everything's so small you can't really figure it out. There's a giant crucial rule in the freaking glossary? Yeah, in the glossary. Next to fancy little pictures. They put a very important rule. And there's just other stuff. Riots, you're not going to be able to figure out how riots work. But luckily, yeah, there's no luckily. But let's get back to the game itself. We're going to go over the components and we'll get a little bit into the gameplay. And as you can see, there is quite a good deal going on in this game, despite the fact it actually is a relatively simple game. So in essence, V-Wars is going to be kind of a mashup of Pandemic with kind of a mashup of a Hidden Identity game with kind of a mashup of a Battlestar Galactica, which I guess is a Hidden Identity game. What's going to happen is at the beginning of the game, you're going to get one of these cards right here, which will either say that you are a human, you are infected, or you are a vampire. There will only be one vampire no matter how many players you play. It goes up to 5 players. And the vampire's job, and they are going to try and win the game by either running all of the event cards out of the deck, which are these cards right down here, which will do random different things, or making it so that the cities that they have control of, which is this marker right here, so you keep track of how many cities they have control of on the left, meets their sympathy marker, which will be right here. So they can gain sympathy, and they can gain cities, and if they ever meet, then they will automatically win the game. Humans, on the other hand, are trying to quarantine off, martial law off, I should say, 6 cities. If they're ever able to do that, then they win the game automatically. So there are humans trying to defeat the hidden vampire. And when you start off as a vampire, you are going to be hidden from everyone else. You'll pretend to be a human. And there are also what are called infected. Now, infected players are players that start off human, and they can potentially go the entire game being human. However, if the vampire ever reveals himself and then bites the infected player, then they will also become a vampire, at which point it becomes a team-based game. So let's go over exactly what's going to be happening. So when you first start the game, and I don't have it set up all the way because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here, you're going to start off with X amount of vampire cities. And vampire cities are going to have this little token on them, and they will also start off with these little vampire troops right here. Now, the vampire troops are a nice touch, but one of mine showed up already broken, and as you can see, they're a little bit flimsy. Mostly just the vampire ones. The other ones are pretty nicely done. The human ones look nice, and they look a lot more durable. Oh, excuse me. The human ones will look a lot more durable, but the vampire ones really just feel kind of flimsy and durable, but we'll talk more about it in the pros and cons. So when you start off the game, you're going to have some human troops on there, you're going to have some vampire troops on there, and then you're going to be dealt some of these cards right here. Now, these cards are going to be the lifeblood of the game. These cards are used for everything in the game, which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. These cards, so what are they going to be used for? These cards are going to be cards used in your hand. You're going to be able to use these cards to place troops on the board. You're going to use these cards to have riots later on, and riots are something that are going to be huge in the game. You're going to play these cards down secretly, a la Battlestar Galactica, in order to put cards into the different piles over here. You're going to use cards for a lot of different things. Last but not least, you're going to have 3 cards just randomly strewn down here. Kind of think of it like the Destiny deck. So these 3 cards could be good cards, they could be bad cards. So what are good cards, what are bad cards? Well, I'll show you. So this card, if it comes up, is going to be a 3 sympathy for for the vampires. This one will be a 2 sympathy for human. This will be a 4 sympathy for vampires. So in your hand, you are going to have cards, and even if you have 6 vampire cards, even if you aren't a vampire, you might potentially have to play those cards when you do your actions, and we'll talk about the actions later. So, next, you're going to have your character. You have your own unique character card, and these things are huge, by the way. I have no idea why these are so massively big, and I have big hands. And it's going to have your character on it and your special ability. Some of the special abilities are better than others, and some of them you'll just completely forget to use. That's just the case. Also, on the back, when you turn into a vampire, or if you go from infected to a vampire, you flip this over and you have a different special ability sometimes. Sometimes you have the same one, but you will become a vampire. And they also have these little standees right here. Now, one problem I do want to mention with the standees is just from putting the little thing on there, they start to peel off. Yeah, that's actually peeling off. It's not supposed to look like that. So that is another component nuisance. So you're going to have this in front of you, and then you're also going to have your cheat sheet card, which is once again massive. But it does have, it's useful enough. It could use a little bit more on there, but it will show you the different moves you can take on your turn, the different actions you can take, the order of operations, and how the riots work. Because the riots are without a doubt the most confusing part of the game, and they actually take up a good chunk of the rules, and they're still confusing, which is not a good thing. So, also, there are going to be events that are going to happen, and these kind of progress along the game. So there are events down here. There's one that says now, and one that says soon over here, and every single turn an event is going to happen. Normally, they will either spawn vampires around the boards in various different spots, or there will be what's called an election. And when an election happens, you're going to be voting on these laws over here. So, for instance, it will say the active player, whatever region the active player is in, because there are 8 different regions right here. It's very difficult to tell because the graphic design in this game on the board is atrociously bad. It is just, I can't even begin to tell you how bad the graphic design is on the board right here. It's just confusing. They wanted to make it all red and fancy and stuff, but they didn't. Some of them are separated by color, like these ones right here, but some are separated by solid lines, and some are separated by dotted lines, and it's very confusing, and it doesn't need to be. Making a map is not difficult, but okay, we'll talk more about that in the pros and cons. I'm getting ahead of myself. But you're going to be voting on events, and when you do that, you will reveal these cards right here, and whichever side has the higher number, so for instance this side, this one, the humans would have a higher number, they would get to win that law, which means you'll put an active law down there, and this one, since it's a white one, will be a good one for the humans. Humans who end their actions in this region may remove up to 2 vampire troops from the region. That's a great thing to have, so if you end your turn there, bada boom, you're going to be able to take away some of the vampires out there, which is great. Now, the laws are not in place the entire game. The next time you have a law vote right down here, it could easily swing to the vampires, especially since when you have a vote, you're going to take away the top 2 most powerful cards of the winning side and put them into the riot deck over here. What's the riot deck do? We'll talk about that a little bit later. So now we would know exactly what's over here, which is bad. It's a 4 for the vampires, unless you happen to be a vampire. So there will be laws getting passed, and there'll be events that happen, and also some of them will tell you to spawn various different vampires around the thing. Now, one thing I want to mention, if you have this game right now, you're frustrated trying to figure it out, and you're like, how does a Vampire's Arise work? Well, luckily, it's right here. In the glossary. Yes, it's in the glossary. That makes me so mad. Because it seems like you just spawn one vampire when vampires arise, when in actuality, you don't do that. There's actually a little bit of an algorithm where however many vampires are there, you spawn them plus 1, and they really should have mentioned that, in the contents of the rules and not in the glossary. But once again, I'm getting ahead of myself to the pros and to the cons. So, let's just get to what you're going to do on your turn. Let's just get this show on the road. On your turn, what are you going to do? You're going to have 4 actions, and they're listed down here. Actually, let's go over here. So the first thing you can do is if you're the vampire, you can choose to reveal. If you do that, though, you will lose sympathy. Sympathy. I can't say that word for some reason. It's generally a bad idea. Next, you're going to be able to do 4 actions. So let's go over the actions. The first one is you can move, and you can move to an adjacent region or city in the current region. So for instance, you could jump from here to here to here to here. And that would be your entire move. Moving around the board is very quick in this game. If you think it's going to be like Pandemic, where it'll take you a while to get from here to there, not really, because you can really jump from continent to continent pretty quickly. So you can do that 4 times if you wanted to. That would be your move. Next, you can spend a card and put a troop in any city in your region. So if you're a good guy, or if you're a bad guy, you can put bad troops as well. But if you're a good guy, you can put good troops, and all you have to do is discard cards. And this is a good time to get rid of some of the red cards in your hand, potentially. Also, if you are the vampire and you are still not revealed, you put good troops out there. So that's an action. You can put up to 4 troops out there. Next, you can place cards. You can play cards to a region or to a riot deck. And this is where the game gets a little bit interesting because, as I mentioned, these cards right here are going to be the lifeblood of the game. And we'll get to riots in a minute. But generally, in a riot, you know what? I can't even say that. I do say you want to have more of your cards, but you actually want to have more low numbers of there, because that's just how the game is played. Oh, man, this is frustrating. But anywho, you can put cards into the various different areas as long as you're in that area. So let's just say you're in North America. You can say, all right, I'm going to put one of the cards from my hand into this North America pile up here. Because once again, this North America pile is going to decide elections and also riots. But the interesting aspect is that you are going to tell someone else to also put a card into the deck with you. And if they're a vampire, they could potentially try to sabotage the deck, even though that is difficult to do because when you get to the riots, they will be very random. But yes, you can place cards. Next, you can assassinate. That is, you just kill troops in your city. So if there's vampires there, you kill the vampires. You know, it's a 1-to-1 thing, so 4 actions kills 4 vampires. Next, you can investigate. How this works is you are going to have 1 clue token when you start the game. And if you happen to think that someone is a vampire, you can say, all right, I think you are a vampire. You spend the action, you spend the investigate token. You only get 1 per game. And they'll either say, yes, I'm the vampire, and revealed. That's good for you. Or they'll say, no, I'm not. And then it's bad because the other team gains sympathy. So yes, you will be able to investigate other people, which leads me to the point that you are never actually going to stay as a vampire the entire game in this. You really wouldn't want to, and it's also going to be incredibly difficult to do, but we'll talk a little bit about that later. But that is the next action. The last action you can do is only if you are a vampire, then you can awaken. And this is when you just try to bite somebody who's in the same city, and if they're infected, then they become a vampire, and then it becomes a team-based game. So we got the 4 actions. Next, we take care of the event down here. And you look at the event, and you might have an election, or you might have zombies or vampires spawning. You just do whatever that event is. And then you are going to shuffle over this card right here next. But first, you do the riots, which is the main point of the game. So how the riots work is if there are 6 troops of a particular color in an area that is not theirs, then they're going to fight. And how you fight is you are going to take all the cards in an area. So let's just say that Cape Town right down here is about to get into a brawl. Let's just say we got, bada boom, we got 6 going on there. We got 6 zombies, and they're going to attack. They're like, 6 vampires, not zombies. And so we would take all the cards in Africa, and we'll put some more in there just to pretend, because, you know, we took them out earlier. So let's just say these are the cards in there. And then you're also going to take the 1 riot card. So this card is actually... So when a riot happens, you will know that it will be to your advantage or disadvantage at least one of those cards. So this card is going to go in there, and then you randomly are going to start revealing. So let's just say we have, I don't know, 2 humans down here and 6 zombies. And we'll go over how this goes. You're going to shuffle up the cards, and one by one, you're going to reveal the cards. So we have a red 3. So the red 3, the first thing, we're going to kill off all these troops right here. And now the vampires have 6, which means they would technically win that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they flipped over 1. Because it says explicitly in the rules you have to flip over 1 card to no more, and your strength is totaled by this right here and whatever cards are. So that was very anticlimactic. So the vampires would win this, and that'd be great for them, because if they win, good stuff will happen. So if the attacker wins with a massacre or without a massacre. So what's a massacre, you may ask? Well, here's the crazy thing about this game. You have to hit 6 or 7 on the nose. If you go 8, then what happens is a massacre, and while it's still kind of good for you, it's also pretty dang good for your other side because they either gain sympathy, and that's not what you want. But the bottom line is, you can't really plan it too much because the cards go from 1 to 5, so a random 5 might just come up and screw up your whole day. And but yes, riots happen, and the riots do things, And potentially you can rally, because rallying is good. If you hit something right on the nose, you get to either, so for instance, if the defender wins, they get to move sympathy 2 in the defender's favor or rally. So what does rallying do? It puts Cindy under martial law, which, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you have 6 cities under martial law, then the humans win. Or if you're the vampires, you become a public vampire with no penalty or awaken another player to see if they are infected, which means you can reveal yourself. Because normally, if you do the reveal action, as I mentioned, it is going to hurt your sympathy because you're going to lose sympathy. But anywho, you are then going... Oh, there's one other thing. Yes, one more thing I got to mention. You're going to put the cards back into the deck, like so, into that area. Shuffle them up. You're going to get rid of this event. This is out of the game completely. You're going to slide this one over here. Then you reveal a new event. And then every single time, yes, every single time, you're going to shuffle up the riot deck and place out a new card over here with a new city. So you are going to be shuffling these cards all of the time. And they're not the nicest quality cards, but I'll talk more about that in the pros and cons. But anywho, you're going to rinse, wash, and repeat over and over and over again until either the vampires win or the people win. And that, in a nutshell, is how you play V-Wars. Alrighty then, V-Wars from IDW. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the pro side, if you're a V-Wars fan, this is obviously going to attract you. Also, when you see it out on the board, it has curb appeal. People look over here, they see all the little miniatures on the board, little tiny miniatures and the different cards, the giant cards. They'll be like, what is that? That looks pretty cool. What are you doing over there? So that's always good. You might draw people into the game. When you explain the game to someone, it sounds like a cool idea. It does. It sounds interesting. The sum of the parts sounds like it should be fun, you know? It's a hidden role vampire game where you're trying to poison the wells slowly and then eventually reveal yourself. And then it turns into a team game because you can potentially bite people. And then it's a race to the finish. And that sounds all well and good. It does. It sounds good. That's it. That is all I have for you, because V-Wars, a game of blood and betrayal, is one of the worst games I've played in a long time. I really did not like this game. And the people I played with shared that same feeling. And I actually took notes. I'm normally a very off-the-cuff kind of reviewer, but there was just so much about this game that I wanted to mention that I didn't like. And I actually mentioned a lot of it in the middle part. But so, graphic design. The graphic design of the board is terrible. Going from different location to different location, it's just, why didn't you just color code this? I know you're trying to go for this visual, you know, red and black and, ooh, gothy appeal with the vampires, and it just doesn't work on the board. The map should be the easiest part you have, because it's just, the way they separate the continents and the different areas is confusing at best. Also, you'll have teeny tiny ones where you can't fit a bunch of vampires sometimes, and you'll have giant ones. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. Also, the player aid card, it could be a little bit more helpful. And it's also gigantic. So I'm going bit by bit. The player aid card is way bigger than it needs to be, which is okay, but it takes up table space. And also, I just wish there was a little bit more, especially when it came to riots and other various different things, but it's not bad. The rules. So we played the first time, we played it wrong. We figured out about 85% of the way the game, we're like, oh wait, this is what we're supposed to be doing. So we played the second time. We played it wrong. But luckily we figured it out about 15 to 20% of the way in, and we were like, oh, we could probably just correct all the things we screwed up. Played it again, and well, we played it correct. But still, it was frustrating. Things are where they shouldn't be. Things are not clear. There's so much. The riot section is a good chunk of the rule booklet, yet the riots are still confusing as to how they work. The glossary. Oh my. There's event cards that come up frequently that tell you to spawn vampires. So you just assume, all right, I just spawn one. No! You spawn more than one sometimes. But only if there's already a vampire there. But how do you know that? You have to read the glossary? The glossary? Who reads the glossary in a rule booklet? When I see the glossary, I'm expecting to say dumb things like, discard pile. This is where the extra cards go. And crap like that. Not crucial rules in the game. Okay, let's keep going. So the rules, they're just bad. They're bad, bad, bad. You're not going to stay hidden all game. Like, if you're looking, and this is not something that's necessarily a con, but it's something that I didn't like. You would never stay hidden the entire game as the vampire. There's going to be times where you're going to want to reveal. There's going to be times when you don't want to reveal. And also, it's really easy to figure out who the vampire is, because if you start flipping over tokens, you know, one person guesses somebody else, then, oh, there's somebody is clearly not the vampire. So yeah, I didn't like that aspect of the game. The events in the Riot deck just felt fidgety. You have to shuffle over and over and over and over and over and over every single time. Every single turn you have to shuffle the Riot deck. What the hell is that? Now you can just do a quick riffle shuffle, but that's annoying and it's tedious and it's just annoying. Okay, so when all the vampire cities get revealed, when all the vampire cities get destroyed, you're just kind of waiting. And there is some of this points in this game where you're just waiting for something to happen. Yes, you can go do this, you can go do that, but you're really just waiting for a riot to happen, or waiting for this to happen, or waiting for an election to happen so cards can get out of there. And I didn't like that. Component-wise, the miniatures. Some of the miniatures, there's the ones that are only on one leg, and I had one that came broken, and they feel really flimsy. Two of them are fine. The green ones and the white ones, the humans, they feel fine because both their feet are on the ground, but both the zombies only have 1 foot on the ground, and they feel very flimsy, and I'm worried they're going to break, which is annoying. Not to mention, these things are terrible. The things that hold the standees actually rip into the standees. No matter how careful you are, they rip into the standees. The components in this game are terrible. For being nice components, they are very bad components. So I don't like the gameplay, I don't like the rules, I don't like the components. I'm not particularly a big fan about the theme, but that's neither here nor there. The only nicest thing I can say is that it comes with a comic book. That's it. This is a $65 comic book to me. V-Wars from IDW is not just one of the worst games I've played this year. This is one of the worst games I think I've ever played. It's got cool ideas, but it just seemed way too random. And I didn't even get to the randomness. So, yeah, you can set up the deck, and you can set up the deck so that you're going to have a high percentage chance of winning. And you're like, all right, we got this stacked up. This should be no-brainer. But just, but since you're shuffling the cards, anything could happen. And even when you think you're clearly going to win a city, it can not happen, and vice versa. And I know some people might like that, but I personally didn't like that because V-Wars. I don't recommend it. I think you should completely ignore this game. But if you really want to, this is an absolute 110% try before you buy. That is V-Wars from IDW. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know if you were a vampire. What is one thing you would look forward to doing? For me personally, I would love to like save people who are like this close to dying. Like people who had cancer, like 25-year-olds who had cancer and they're just about to die. It'd be like, I just gave you immortality, buddy. You're fully healed. You're immortal. And that would just warm my cold, dead heart, I think, being able to do that for people. I think that'd be pretty cool. But let me know in the comments below, what would you like to do if you were a vampire? Let me know. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.